Okay. Okay. My apologies again for the, well, for those of you online, for the bad transmission. As you probably heard, there was a storm, a thunderstorm, and so yeah, we couldn't get. Oh, you can't. Sorry, I couldn't switch on. Yeah. Anyway, so we had some problems last time. We couldn't get into this room because they had a picnic and forgot to leave the key. And of course, there was a thunderstorm. All of northern India. It must have been really bad in Delhi. A lot of flooding there. So we're lucky it wasn't so bad here. But yeah, we didn't really have a good internet connection. Anyway, we're back in our prayer hall. Okay. Now, I don't know whether you had the chance to follow Yangden Rinpoche's teachings. I put the, oh great, you found this chair, very good. I put the link in the group. So for those of you who had the chance to follow live, well, there are going to be recordings, and I really recommend these teachings. Yangden Rinpoche, not that many know him. He's very close to His Holiness, works for His Holiness, and he's just an incredible scholar and practitioner. Really amazing. From Sarah May, actually, originally, but he's been working for the private office for a few years now and started teaching more extensively. He has a lot of Chinese students because he speaks Chinese really well. Anyway, I make the link available as soon as they record, as soon as they send it to me. But something he said, I thought I'd share with you. I thought it was really nice. And this is in the context also of great compassion. Today we'll talk mainly about great compassion, but we'll need to discuss a few aspects of it that I think are really important. Well, what Rinpoche talked about was, what is the self? I mean, huge subject, no surprise. What is that self really? Like, if we think about it, in the end, they're only the five aggregates. There are only mind and body. All there is really mind and body, right? I mean, of course, if you then search further for mind and body, but without doing that, the sense of I that arises all the time, well, we label I on the basis of the mind doing something, the body doing something. So every time any of these mind or body do something, we think I. If we were to remove that thought, there wouldn't be any I. Couldn't find any I. So really what's there are just the five aggregates, mind and body. Very impersonal, actually. Impersonal in the sense there's nothing to obsess about to the degree we do. And then someone asks, well, there's feeling though. Like my mind feels something that other people don't feel. So of course they're just aggregates, but my body, my mind, they have sensations that no one else has. So do I not need to look after more, be more self-obsessed? Well, of course we're not saying don't look after your body. If you're in pain, move, if you're sitting, I don't know, cross-legged, or maybe in the full lotus position and you're in unbearable pain, by all means move, your body's telling you to move. Mentally, likewise, if something scares you so badly, a situation, well, then maybe get away from the situation. But the point, and that was really interesting, the point Rinpoche made, it's not the emotions that are the problem. It's not the emotions themselves. So what we usually hear is what is taught in the texts. A positive emotion leads to attachment, a negative emotion leads to, or no, I shouldn't say emotion. A negative sensation, a positive sensation leads to attachment, and negative leads to aversion. This is particularly true. These are very strong emotions or very strong sensations. So physical, some incredibly, like think of food. You eat a type of food and you're like, wow, you feel good for the next 3 hours after eating this. I mean, while eating it and after having eaten it, like, whoa, no longer any worries, no problem. Of course, we're going to be attached to that food. We'd like to get some more next time. We're stressed out, we're hungry, whatever. Or someone makes us feel totally understood and loved and precious and important. And I don't know, the whole list of things, right, makes us feel really good about ourselves. We'll get attached to whatever triggered that sensation. Yeah. But what Rinpoche said was, it's actually not the positive sensation itself. You need something more. He said, you need to now bring that positive sensation together with your sense of I. I'm experiencing this. Oh, my body. Because if it was just impersonal, just a positive sensation, we just move on. Yeah, there's a positive sensation. Great. That's it. But we bring our sense of I together with that sensation. So I have just been my body just experienced that incredible, or I was finally understood for who I am. No one has ever seen me for who I am, but this person has, for instance, right? I've always been misunderstood, but now I've been understood. So in that sense, the moment that, since the previous sensation was combined with the sense of self, that triggers another emotion. Like, I got this, oh, my mind, my body, it's amazing. And that leads to attachment. I thought that made a lot of sense. It doesn't contradict the earlier explanation that you find in the text. Positive sensations lead to attachment, because it's still a positive emotion, a positive sensation. I keep saying emotion. Positive sensation, but it's been brought together with the I. And that's where all the trouble starts. So it's that, well, first of all, our misperception of an I, but then self-centeredness that arises from that. And that's why we can't easily generate great compassion. There's something very powerful preventing our mind from doing so. It's very powerful. We have it all the time. If it's not active, if it lies dormant, it nevertheless influences our actions, our thoughts, our words, our physical movements. Therefore, we're up against something very powerful. And it's important, therefore, to check again and again, where's that I? Where's that I? Again and again, especially in moments when it's very strong. I've just been insulted. I've been ignored. I've been hurt. Right? In those moments, that's a great opportunity. Like a scientist, like a petri dish, like a huge petri dish in that moment, full of stuff, right? Of this very strong self-centeredness. And if you can't do it in the moment, well, use your memory. When you've got a quiet moment, sit down. Oh, what was that? Interesting. I mean, self-centeredness is always there, but that one was really pronounced. So what was it focusing on? What was that I? Right? Where was it exactly? Yeah? And without kind of right away going, oh yeah, it's not there, it's not. No. Hypothetically, if it were there, I should be able to find it. What exactly is it? Right? So that would be a great opportunity. But of course, once you've done that, it's helpful once you've understood, or once you've analyzed that kind of self, well then, and you come to the conclusion, I can't find it, then of course it's a good opportunity to focus on all other sentient beings, to think, oh wow, I've got some time on my hand. I've got some time and energy. Don't need to look after that thing that's not there in the first place, right? So then other sentient beings, because usually we just don't have the space of mind. There's nothing left in our mind, right? And what I find also so helpful is something Geshe Rinpoche once said. I told many of you many times, but let me tell the rest of you who haven't heard me repeat what Geshe-la said. Geshe-la said, it's so interesting that we are slaves. Oh, Chilla, please go. Is there enough space? Geshe-la said, it's so interesting that if we were to imagine there's someone whose slave we are, we don't get paid, and this person keeps telling us, get up now, I have coffee, I need a shower, I need food, I need, I don't know, see my friends, I need to be entertained, put on the TV. All day long it's telling us, do this, do that, I don't like this, I don't like that, right? Without getting paid. How long would we do this for? Right? For someone, you're just someone who, like a voice in our mind, keeps constantly telling us, do this, do this, do that. You know, don't do this. I need my reputation. I need to be, right, seeking all the time gratification without any advantage. In fact, we're exhausted at the end of the day and we're creating a lot of suffering for ourselves. How long would we make it? 2 weeks? That seems pretty long. 2 weeks. So that's what we do with ourselves. This is the same for our self-centeredness. In ourselves. There's this constant voice in our mind, this constant, like, I need, I don't want, I want, it goes on the whole time. And we just run right away. I mean, our mind and body, because we project this huge thing, this I, and we never stop to wonder, is it actually there? Right? Is it actually there? So for the first time, well, I guess in my case, it was definitely through Buddhism that I thought about this for the first time. No self. So, okay, let's assume we've understood that. Well then, other sentient beings, it makes so much sense. There's so much time and space. And that's the only way to feel really good. To feel calm, to not worry. I mean, of course, if we generate compassion, it doesn't mean that the sense of self disappears right away. But the stronger our compassion, the easier it also gets to understand the self doesn't exist. I remember once, and again, I told many of you this before, when we debate on the debate ground, these debates come up, of course, and I remember once debating with someone called Matur Rinpoche. I don't know whether you ever heard of Matur Rinpoche. He is one of the head lamas of the Talung Kayu tradition, and he was a classmate for about 10, 11 years before he started his own monastery in Nepal. Very high lama. He once told me that his name, Matur Rinpoche, it means actually the druku of a cook, because he was the cook of the 5th Dalai Lama. So a very strong connection. But anyway, he was also a great practitioner. Now the point is, once when we debated, I asked Rinpoche, I said, what do you think, if you practice compassion, how come that it's easier to understand selflessness? And his answer was, you understand that the chair is empty. You understand that the chair is empty. So I was like, chair is empty? But what it meant was, basically you're getting up from your chair of self-centeredness. Usually we sit with the I, we're just looking after ourselves, mine, that which is mine, me, mine, I, me, mine. And then if we actually work for the benefit of others, practice compassion, we're getting up from that chair. We're reaching out. So we're reaching out and we're working for others and realize, there wasn't anything in the first place. We just do our thing, working for others. And then if we look back, where's that gone? Yeah, so it's much easier to understand. I thought that was a beautiful way of putting it, Rinpoche's way of putting it. We realize the chair is empty. So it shows those two go hand in hand. Understanding that the self doesn't exist, and therefore then dedicating ourselves to so many others who still believe there's a self, and therefore suffer so terribly. Suffer terribly, well, it's not apprehending the self itself that's the problem. Actually, it isn't. That misconception in itself is not the problem. The problem is that it triggers self-centeredness. Self-centeredness is really what gives us a hard time. That triggers, of course, all the other afflictions as well. And the good thing is, nowadays we live our lives. For instance, if we think, should I do some exercise? We look up the benefits, the scientific understanding of not exercising. I mean, I do, because otherwise I don't get myself to do it. Or if we want to go on a certain diet, we look up what are the benefits, what are the disadvantages of not doing so. I mean, we inform ourselves, right? We try to find out what's the benefit, the disadvantage, and so forth. So nowadays you have a lot of research on the disadvantages of self-centeredness. Yeah? So if the Buddhist text, of course there's plenty in the Buddhist texts, but to complement what's in the text with the scientific understanding makes it really powerful. I mean, loneliness. We're isolating ourselves from everyone else. We are only looking after ourselves, basically, so we feel lonely. Because we expect the whole world to look after ourselves the way we do, and no one does, because everyone is busy with themselves. So we become these beings wishing for everyone to pay attention to us, but they're too busy with themselves. I mean, we live at a time, especially in the 21st century, where self-centeredness is no longer seen as negative, as, for instance, it's seen in Tibetan society. We don't look after each other in the way we did. People live in huge houses, different apartments, and don't even know their neighbors. How's that even possible, right? I mean, thinking of the past. So loneliness, stress, just looking after this one person and not being able to accomplish what we want, satisfaction and peace of mind, it's just not going to come. Like, no way. It triggers stress. So we're stressed out. There's fear. So much fear. I think all our fear really comes from self-centeredness. That it's impossible, if you think of all the suffering of other sentient beings, to have fear. Isn't that interesting? There's fear when it comes to the self-centered mind recognizing our own suffering, but when we recognize the suffering of all sentient beings, there is no fear. In fact, it gives rise to this courage. Oh, there's a lot of work to be done, right? It leads to a kind of maturity. So that's just in the nature of things. Science supports that. It supports the fact that, for instance, love and compassion are good for us. It's good for our heart. It's good for our immune system. On the contrary, self-centeredness, the stronger it is, then you call it narcissism eventually. But in comparison to the Buddha, we're all narcissists. We all suffer from narcissism, I mean, in comparison. So it's really bad for our entire system. So if we eat organic food and we exercise, we should really be sure that we look after our self-centeredness, trying to reduce it. All right, so again, what we're practicing here, of course, is compassion. So let's do it together just to generate our motivation. Just a few steps to go through to then generate, of course, the mind of enlightenment in order to set the right kind of motivation. And then we do the prayers. So let's take a moment Just watching the breath. And briefly remembering the disadvantages on a physical and mental level of self-centeredness. Let's generate the sincere wish for each and every sentient being to be free from all their suffering. And its causes. And let's think, may I be able to assist sentient beings in such a way that they may be able to overcome all their suffering and its causes. And that mind then gives way to the altruistic resolve, which is now determined that I will assist others, all sentient beings, in fact, in their attempt to overcome suffering and its causes. And since we're able to do so effectively only once we attain the enlightened state of a Buddha ourselves, let's generate the sincere aspiration to attain the enlightened state of a Buddha. Without letting go of that aspiration, let's recite the prayer, or the prayers. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merits of listening to the teachings, may I achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merits of listening to the teachings, may I achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merits of listening to the teachings, may I achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that holds some close and others distant. Okay, Great. The audio's bad?
It was just 10 seconds.
Okay. Okay, good. I just saw there's a message here. Great. All right. Now, let's analyze compassion. This is the time to get really into it. What is the definition of compassion, first of all? The wish for the wish for sentient beings to be free from suffering is the definition of compassion. And then great compassion, what do you add? The wish for... No, it's actually the wish for all sentient beings to be free from suffering. That's this is the definition given in the texts, and that needs to be analyzed. So it's usually described as a loving attitude, a loving mind. A loving mind, a loving attitude. A loving attitude is probably better. A loving attitude that wishes for all sentient beings to be free from suffering. Okay, that's great compassion. As opposed to the wish that the loving attitude that wants my friend to be free from suffering. Usually we have a partial type of compassion directed maybe at those people who are close to me. We have, of course, the wish for myself to be free from suffering. That's not called self-compassion, sure, yeah. If suffering is recognized in the right way here, then it's actually a good type of mind. Okay, but let's look at this. So, first of all, it's directed at all sentient beings. But I don't know all sentient beings. In fact, how many do I know in comparison to how many there are? Now, what does that even mean, all sentient beings? How could I have the wish for all sentient beings to be free from suffering if I don't know them? What do you think? Can you generate that mind? I mean, just for a few seconds, like really sincerely, may they all be free from any kind of problems and their causes. Right? We cannot do that. It goes away quickly. It doesn't remain. But we can all do it. There's a sense I can do it. So how do we do it? If we don't know all sentient beings.
Imagine the 6 realms.
You imagine the 6 realms. Okay. But we don't, okay, so we don't know the 6 realms, but we imagine them. Okay, all right, okay. What else comes to mind?
You have to fill the whole mind with that thought.
Pardon?
You have to fill the whole mind with the thought.
You have to fill the whole mind with that thought. Yeah, very good. Not to think of dinner or breakfast or whatever, right? Yeah, so absolutely. No, I agree. Fill the whole mind. I mean, that's very important. But what is the issue with all sentient beings? What does that actually mean? I mean, like, visualize all sentient beings, well, that would work. But can you think of it in another way?
Not excluding anyone.
Pardon?
Not excluding anyone.
Say again?
Not excluding.
Oh, that's very good. Not excluding anyone. Yes, please.
My mind is always sleeping time with a lot of dream.
Lot of what?
Dreams. Lot of, and the tree and animals and any women, any. I have no idea, but
Oh, so
lot of dream. Sleeping, wake up, and he died. Mind is very heavy.
okay, but that's not the mind. I mean, you say you're overwhelmed by the thoughts of other sentient beings, and that's very heavy, right? Like during your dreams, you're saying I have to repeat it for the online, for this online. Yep, but okay, I see that, but that's not a positive thing, right? We're looking at something positive here, in the sense of how can we focus on all sentient beings without being overwhelmed in the way you just described, but instead wish for all sentient beings to be free from suffering, and as Maya said, not leaving out anyone. I thought that was an important one. Just a sec, you want to say something? Yeah?
Maybe develop wisdom,
Maybe develop wisdom.
realizing emptiness,
So you're saying if you realize emptiness, then I can do it not just for my friends, but also for others. Is that what you said? Yeah. But I still wonder how it includes all. Yes, go ahead.
Maybe try to remember in our experience the three kind of relation that we have, like with friends and enemies and people that we don't have any.
The ones we don't care. So to think of the relationship we have usually with people, the ones we're really close to, the ones that we don't like, and then the rest we don't care about.
Maybe include the three kind of
Include, okay, so to think of anyone, just have a general sense, okay, those, and usually the ones we're indifferent towards, those are the majority. The ones we don't like, the ones we like, they're the minority. Okay, yes, all that works, but usually the way it is described is still a little different. It says that, and this is close to what Maya said, so not excluding anyone, it kind of means once you have that mind, whoever you encounter, whoever you think of, is included in that. So it's automatically, without having met that many people, but every time then you encounter someone, that person is included. So it's like, yeah, no one is excluded in that sense, that no matter who it is, who you're thinking of, they're part of that equation, they're part of that group. Yeah. So in that way, you don't need to know everyone. This is similar to, for instance, when we talk about realizing the emptiness of all phenomena. We don't all know all phenomena, but the moment we take something to mind and we've understood emptiness previously, then we know this also applies to this particular object. Okay, great. All right. Now, having said that, what is the suffering? When we say, I want for all sentient beings to be free from suffering. Okay, all sentient beings. No discrimination. No one is left out. And why not? Of course, there are reasons for that. We've gone through them on a few occasions. I don't think we need to get into them now. Okay, so all sentient beings, they all equally deserve our compassion. Okay, what is the suffering we want them to be free from?
The self-cherishing mind and self-grasping ignorance, the two types of suffering.
Okay, well, the self-cherishing mind, the self-grasping and self-cherishing attitude. That sounds good. Very good, but to remember in the Buddhist text, in what context is the word suffering usually used? I mean, which terms are there that use the word suffering? Alan, go ahead. Oh, pardon?
The Four Noble Truths.
Okay, the Four Noble Truths, yes.
Suffering,
Pardon?
suffering of suffering.
Ah, okay. Suffering of suffering, suffering of change, and pervasive suffering. Yes. You also raised your hand, please.
Lack of freedom,
Lack of freedom.
not getting what you want and getting what you don't want.
Oh, that's a good one, actually. This lack of freedom. I mean, we're really not free. We're really not free. We're totally under the control of our mind and our self-centeredness. Yes. Yes, it's actually like, what is liberation? It's just another word for freedom. It's just a fancy term for freedom. Yeah. Of course, a particular type of freedom here. Okay, so everything all of you said is totally correct. The self-centeredness and, no, the self-grasping and the self-centered attitude. The three types of suffering. Okay, now when we say suffering, let's take the three types of suffering. What do you want sentient beings to be free from? The three types of suffering. Pervasive. The other ones too? Yeah, they're included. Yeah, absolutely, exactly. Actually, she's right by saying the pervasive condition suffering, because the suffering of suffering and the suffering of change, they're all pervasive sufferings. So, of course, suffering of suffering is what we also identify as unpleasant. Suffering of change, well, we've heard that our happy experiences, however happy they may be, they are ridiculous when it comes to the happiness we can actually experience. An arhat or a Buddha would go, you call that happiness? That's ridiculous. Yeah, our mind is capable of perceiving so much more happiness, so much more well-being. Okay, and I forgot to check. Ooh, quite a few messages arrived. Okay, so even though Banu says, I don't know each sentient being, I would think of the common link. Beings who just like me experience suffering and want happiness. Okay. Yes. Okay. Anyway, and also Venerable Yangdun, I'm just skimming through them. As sentient beings basically exist like we exist, they must go basically through the same thing. So it's also an understanding like, yeah, so the sense, they're just like me. And so just as I want to be free from suffering, I want them to be free from suffering. Yes. But of the three types of suffering, the first is the ordinary suffering we identify. The second is what we call happiness, but it's just the absence of something worse. Have you ever noticed? This is so interesting. Have you ever noticed that often it's not the object of our happiness, is what went first? Am I making sense? It's not the object that brings us happiness. We usually think it's the object that gives us happiness, and that's why we crave it. But in actuality, it's not the object, it's what preceded the experience of that object. Let me give you an example. You're so hungry. You're so hungry. And someone gives you a piece of bread. Oh, that piece of bread. It may be stale, it may be, I don't know, very salty. It's blissful. And then you're feeling sick. You've eaten too much. And someone gives you that piece of bread. What's going to happen? Ooh, this is disgusting. Right? Same piece of bread. Right? Same hopeless baker. Right? Too much of this, too much of that. And so, it's not Alan. I know he makes very good bread. Anyway, so it's therefore not so much the object, but it's what preceded it. Again, you're super hot, super hot, you're out in the sun, it gets worse. Or you've just been locked into a freezer. You know, these walk-in freezers, you get locked in there for a few hours. They finally open the door and you walk into the sun, same temperature. Oh, is it about the object or not? Right? Yeah, so you haven't seen your friend in forever. Wow, right? And you meet them for the first time and the conversations are just thriving. So much to exchange. Whoa, wonderful. You just had a wonderful 2 hours. Same encounter after we were locked into the same room with the same friends for like 5 days. I can't stand to hear their voice. Right? So suffering of change, that's also one of the reasons we talk about change. Because it depends on what was there first. If we continuously experience the same thing, it will turn into suffering. So you're totally full. To eat that piece of bread, it turns into suffering. You've spent too much time with these friends, it turns into suffering. You've spent just in the sun the last 5 hours, the next hour is going to be torture. So therefore, our life right now is we can never sit still. We constantly have to change because before long, whatever we'll do becomes a problem. If I were to take a camera and film everyone here while I'm talking, or you film me, including myself, and then you play it very quickly, what is it going to be? Right? We constantly have to change because we can never, just sitting in the same position will eventually turn into pain and suffering. We cannot just lay in bed the whole time and don't do anything because our mind embodies in the nature of suffering. Our mind embodies in the so it shows by not doing anything, it's just getting worse. right? Just lying there, not doing. So we have to be on our toes the whole time. Okay, a certain amount of sleep, get up at some point. Getting up, eating something, stop eating. Have a shower, stop having a shower. An 8-hour shower is not going to make us happier. There's a degree, right, of that. Our body will react, our mind will react. So we have to constantly be on the move, right? Constantly change things. This is so much work. This is so tiring, isn't it? Incredible. Okay. This is so exhausting. Isn't that exhausting? So the fact that we constantly have to change, always change the situation. We believe these short moments, right? Like you haven't had a shower in 2 months or something. Oh, that first moment under the shower feels so good. We think that's real happiness. But we don't realize if it were, then 8 hours, it should be getting better. It should be getting greater. If that was real happiness, the happiness should increase. If it was in the nature of happiness, it should increase. But because it turns into suffering, it shows it's in the nature of suffering. And our happy experiences are just the absence of something worse, which is 6 hours of previous showering, for instance. This is so clear also when you have been really, really sick. Let's say you've been sick for many weeks and you couldn't even have a cup of coffee. You crave it, but you can't have it. And it's the first day feeling better, that cup of coffee. It's an ordinary experience for most of us, right? Yeah, it's nice, but it's not like, whoa, no. But it's wow in that moment. Why? Because it was so much worse before. That's it. That's all there is. So it's in the nature of suffering. I don't want to be pessimistic, but let's be realistic. It is. And that is simply because we are projecting some weird I that cannot even be found, which leads to self-centeredness, and we become a slave of this mind that constantly tells us, do this for me. I need a good reputation. I need to be successful. I need to have money. I need to have friends. I need to have, right? I need, and it's never enough. So this suffering is also given another name, dissatisfaction. You cannot find satisfaction for something that doesn't even exist. When you're totally focused on just that thing not existing and ignore everyone else, that is not natural. I mean, it's not supposed to be like that. We're supposed to be happy. It's the natural state of our mind. Our mind naturally seeks it. But because it's doing something unnatural, obsessing over something that doesn't exist, we can't reach that state. So we have a problem. But the first step is recognizing that. Recognizing that and wishing for ourselves, first of all, to be free from that. Not just the suffering of suffering. I mean, everyone wants to be free from that. You don't need to meditate or do anything. Everyone naturally wants to be free from suffering. But we're so attached to our suffering of change. And what's so absurd is also when we experience happiness, there's an object that triggers that happiness, what we call happiness. Actually, we should get attached to the feeling. Well, we get attached to the object. Because we now label, oh, happy object. Object makes me feel good. We don't realize the object is secondary. It's what was before. Right? It's what was before. So the object is merely secondary. It's to do with of course, my actions in the past. What experiences do I have in each moment? They ripen as a result of past actions. But also, did I not get any food for the last 5 hours? And now the food is so delicious? Right? Or is there something in the object. Oh, there's a deliciousness coming from the object. And so I crave this object. We crave the object, a person, right? We crave other people. We want to own them. Our craving can go to such a degree that we want to control them. Attachment to someone, right? It comes from, they make us feel good, but we don't realize one of the main reasons they make us feel good is because of the karma we've accumulated in the past. So therefore, because if this person were intrinsically a making feel good person, everyone should have that experience, right? Everyone should have that experience, but I have it and no one else does. So they make me feel good. I've created the cause for that. Secondly, there were certain circumstances. Maybe I was misunderstood. No one else made me feel that way before. You know, everything that happened before. And then I encounter that person. There was this, whoa, like, ooh. So this was the trigger. The person was the trigger, but the secondary trigger. So I should get attached to the karma I accumulated, right? I should get attached to just that feeling, but I'm mainly attached to the person. Oh, they make me feel good. I want to be around this person. My happiness depends on that person. And there's a sense they can really give me happiness. Objectively, they can give me happiness. So I'm worried when they're with other people, because other people will recognize how this person will inherently give them happiness. So I don't want them to spend any time with other women, for instance, if it's a male, right? So if I'm infatuated with a guy, I don't want this guy to be around other women, because I think there's something inherent in that person, a happiness given quality that every woman will see and then take him away from me. Right? Absurd. It's a subjective experience. Yeah, maybe there are some who share the same, but it's not like every woman will like jump on this person. It's not going to happen. But I worry, nevertheless. And actually, I created the cause for that experience. That was the main trigger. But not recognizing it, I accumulate a lot of non-virtue in my relation, in this relationship. Want to control the person, not allowed to go out, not allowed to go anywhere. I keep calling and sending messages. I'm talking about an extreme attachment, an extreme version, because it's easier to recognize. But it's nevertheless, even if it's weaker, can't live without that person. The fear it gives rise to. Attachment triggers fear. The fear to be separated from this object. I mean, our lives are miserable in that way. If you think about it, no freedom. The more attachment we have also to other people, whoa. So, recognizing that, okay, suffering of change, this short-term happiness that we constantly have to, change things for in order to experience that again, is only there because there's the pervasive suffering. We have this mind and body, as you said, basically triggered or basically controlled by self-grasping and the self-centered attitude. I want to be free from that. I want to experience that true, lasting happiness. That it doesn't matter who I'm with. It doesn't matter who I'm with. It doesn't matter what food I eat. It doesn't matter what weather it is. I'd be always constantly calm. Totally independent of external stimuli, which are totally unreliable, because that stale piece of bread can give me bliss or can make me want to throw up. Remember the stale piece of bread? Okay. And that's true for everyone else. I mean, I'm just one person suffering that way. I'm just one person. But these endless sentient beings. And I found a solution. Not that I'm really applying the medicine and all that, but at least I know how. And every now and then, if I'm in the mood, I may do it. But there's so many people that are so far from the Dharma. No choices, nothing. Isn't that terrible? Doesn't it make sense to go, well, so far I've only looked after this eye and it hasn't brought me anything. So maybe I change my focus. All right. Anyway, that's the way to go about it. But therefore it makes sense. great compassion, to have great compassion, when you generate great compassion, first you need renunciation. You need to understand that our experiences in samsara are in the nature of suffering. So in other words, besides what we usually call suffering, even our happiness is totally limited, totally not dependent, well, only in a secondary fashion dependent on the object. And as long as we have this mind and body, especially a mind that is controlled by a self-centered, self-grasping and self-centeredness, there is no lasting peace. It's not going to happen. Like, sorry, no way. We try to seek it all the time, right? We seek it all the time. Our mind cheats us into thinking, oh, if I just had that flat, I'd be happy. If I had that job, I'd be happy, right? And then if we have it, it's like, oh, big deal, not much happier.
It's trying to grasp certainty, isn't it?
It's going to grasp certainty, exactly. And also something Yanden Rinpoche said, it really struck me. It's so true. Sometimes, we're in one place and things are like, and then you go somewhere else and it's all gone, right? It's a new place. The same problems are not, they don't come about right away and you feel good. But don't stay too long in the same place because they all come back. It's not about the place. And so Rinpoche said, that's why people go on vacations all the time. Right? In the West, we're so, I tell you, in Germany, vacations. COVID was like, no vacations. And the moment the lockdown was over, people packed their bags. And because there was this, there was a sense this is real happiness if you're, on some Spanish island, lying in the sun and turning into a tandoori chicken, right? Wow, that is true happiness. It's because in that moment, your problems are gone. Yeah. But if you stay on that island for a year or two, it's almost like someone ships them over from Germany. It's all catching up with you. Yeah, so people need to leave and then they come back and they feel good again because now they're home again. So it's this constant going on vacations, right? And there's so many Indians, for instance, here, I think they never even take a day off. And they don't seem happier than Germans. Right? They don't seem unhappier, they don't seem unhappier, I should say, than Germans. Germans don't seem happier. So I'm just talking about Germans, I don't know about other nationalities, but our obsession with taking a vacation, right? Incredible. It's really bizarre. The sense I can find some happiness. But you won't find it outside of yourself. And just escaping all the time is just like taking a painkiller. Really, it's like numbing the pain, basically. And many of the shopkeepers here, I've never seen them not being in their shop. And they're very happy and satisfied. So it's not the solution of taking a lot of vacations is really bringing you more happiness. It comes from within. Okay. All right, having said all this, now, the three types of suffering. Now, let's go back to the suffering here we're talking about. The suffering is the three types of suffering. That's what you want other sentient beings to be free from. That's usually the assertion. But if that's true, let's now debate. If you want for all sentient beings to be free from suffering, there are some sentient beings who are free from the three types of sufferings. Who are they? Yeah? Arhats? Arhats don't have the three types of suffering. So, I want them to be free from suffering, but they don't have any suffering? What's wrong here? Okay, that's one thing. And it is very clearly said that Kiras and solitary realizer practitioners do not have great compassion. It's very clear in the text, they don't have great compassion. If we posit the definition that I just gave, it's ridiculous to say that arhats don't have that aspiration, that they don't look at all sentient beings, arhats or learners, like those on the path to becoming arhats, to becoming self-liberated, they have compassion for some sentient beings. For instance, it's said that they have immeasurable compassion, not great, but immeasurable compassion. So focusing on all sentient beings. All right, so immeasurable compassion is defined, and I think it was someone called Kim who mentioned this in their group. Immeasurable compassion is defined as a mind that is either concentration or wisdom. It's either concentration or wisdom that wishes for sentient beings to be free from suffering. It doesn't say all sentient beings, it says sentient beings. So some would say it's immeasurable sentient beings. So not all, but immeasurable, huh? And that's really discriminating to say, oh, for like so many sentient beings, they have compassion, but which are excluded? Which sentient beings are not included in the love? So they have the sincere wish for many sentient beings to be free from suffering. But which ones do they not wish to? That doesn't make any sense. Which is why some masters, including Geshe Thupten Pesang, he says, no, that's not, that itself cannot be the definition. We need to add something. Well, first of all, his assertion is not only do those inclined to the universal vehicle, so those who are not inclined towards self-liberation, but inclined towards enlightenment, even without having generated bodhicitta yet. Remember I talked about being inclined? Those having great compassion are those who are inclined towards the Mahayana, who have the spiritual disposition. Okay, so those who have that disposition, who have the sincere disposition, they have great compassion. There must be more than just the wish for all sentient beings to be free from the three types of sufferings. So Geshe-la says, it's also the aspiration, may I be able to protect them from these sufferings. May I contribute. That makes actually sense, because the next mind, what follows, so when you do the meditation, step by step, you have great compassion. What's the next mind? What was the next mind when we did the meditation just earlier? What was it called? The special attitude or the altruistic resolve? I changed the term. I used to say the altruistic attitude or the special. Now I follow Geshe Thupten Jinpa's. I like the resolve, the altruistic resolve. That's the determination to do whatever I can to help sentient beings overcome the three types of suffering. But how can you have a resolve or a determination without first wishing for it? Does that make sense? I mean, it's usually psychologically, before you're like determined to do something, you want to do it. That's why it makes sense to include it in great compassion. I like that. So you still want for all sentient beings to be free from suffering, but at the same time, you also want to actively contribute to that. Actively want to, you wish. So great compassion is an aspiring mind. You wish for that to happen. Okay, great. But we're still left with all sentient beings and then the arhats. What could be an answer to that? So the arhats they already freed themselves. So I want for all sentient beings, I should say all sentient beings except the arhats. But would that be okay? That's not okay. No, why is it not okay? Why should I not leave out the arhats?
Well, they're still in samsara.
Are the arhats still in samsara? Do they still have samsara? But let me ask you, what is samsara? What is samsara? It's our own personal body and mind, right? So samsara is not a place. It's described like that in the texts, especially for someone who's new to the Dharma. It feels so much easier to understand. We are in samsara. We are in this mind and body, basically. Okay. So, therefore, is an arhat still in samsara? Yes.
It's a contaminated body and mind, right?
Yeah.
So the arhat
Yeah.
doesn't have sleep.
Yes. So you have two types of arhats. You have the arhat who became liberated in this body, right? So let's say, I don't know, someone, Peter, practiced the hero vehicle in a very determined fashion. So they two lifetimes earlier, they already progressed very rapidly, and now this is the last lifetime in which they are no longer reborn in samsara, right? I mean, they become liberated in this lifetime, but the body they have is still an ordinary body. It's still the result of karma, contaminated karma and afflictions. Now, they took this body, this is still a samsaric body, and they become liberated in this lifetime. Their mind is now no longer samsaric because Peter removed his afflictions, has removed his self-centered, his self-grasping, his self-centered attitude, and all other afflictions. But the body is still samsara. So that you could definitely say this arhat is still in samsara, because although their mind has gone beyond samsara, the body still is the result of karma and afflictions. That's called, they have a nirvana with remainder, right? Okay, I use it the way it's usually used in the lower schools. There's also another way in which the consequentialist school, but let's use this. This is pretty straightforward. So anyway, and then they die and their mind continues to exist, right? Their mind continues to exist. They take on a subtler body that's not, or maybe even no body, if they just remain in that absorption for a while, no need to take on a body, and they just remain in that absorption. Yeah? They may even remain, no, I don't think they remain in that body. But the point is that these arhats, yeah, so once their body died, because it has only a certain amount of time, you know, the karma, the projecting karma that is responsible for this body, it comes with an expiration date. I mean, it has a certain length that it remains, and usually at some point they leave this body behind, and then they're truly out of samsara. Okay. So you could still wish for arhats with remainders to be free from suffering, because they still have this body. Okay. But of course there are those arhats who've left behind even this limited, fragile body. So do you want to leave them out? No. Why not? Why not leave them out?
They still have cognitive obscuration.
Because they still have cognitive obscurations. Yes. And you're aiming to become enlightened also for their benefit, right? Aha. Aha. Now that's interesting. Okay. Now when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, we all know the Four Noble Truths from the point of view of the fundamental vehicle. But are there also Four Noble Truths from the point of view of the universal vehicle? Truth of suffering, truth of the origin of suffering, truth of the path, a truth of cessation, and truth of the path. Usually we hear the Four Noble Truths, and they refer, actually, strictly speaking, to the Four Noble Truths from the point of view of I've totally ignored the group, I'm so sorry. From the point of view of, what I was going to say? The fundamental vehicle. Exactly, thank you. From the point of view of the fundamental vehicle. But you can take the Four Noble Truths from the point of view of the universal vehicle. Does that make sense? What is the truth of origin? I'm not starting with the truth of suffering. Truth of origin of the Four Noble Truths from the point of view of the universal vehicle.
View of the transitory collection.
The view of the transitory collection. That's part of the fundamental. That's the truth of the view of the.
The Prasadika can use the view of the transitory collection.
Pardon?
Oh, sorry.
No,
I'm on
the
wrong track
arhats.
here. Oh, the arhats.
Yeah, no, the arhats
Oh, I see.
have reached. They're done with the truth of suffering and the truth of origin of the fundamental vehicle. They've overcome them. But have the arhats overcome the truth of suffering and the truth of origin from the point of view of the universal vehicle? No. So what is the truth of origin of the universal vehicle? Cognitive obscurations? Yeah, we usually don't think. So from the point of view of the fundamental vehicle, the truth of origin are the afflictive obscurations, right? Karma and afflictions. All right. Now, what are they from the universal point of view? It's exactly the cognitive obscurations. Okay. So what's the truth of suffering? What's the truth of suffering from the point of view of the universal vehicle? Pardon?
First two types of suffering.
The three types of suffering?
First two.
That's true. But an arhat, you see, an arhat has not overcome the truth of suffering from the point of view. An arhat who's just become self-liberated has not overcome the what do you call it? The truth of the truth of suffering from the point of view of the universal vehicle, because they have not overcome the truth of the origin from the point of view of the fundamental vehicle. So just think, what is responsible for the truth of suffering from the fundamental vehicle point of view? What is responsible for the truth of suffering from the fundamental vehicle point of view? It's the afflictions and karma. What does it give rise to? Well, to this mind and body, to the three types of suffering. Now think, the cognitive obscurations, what are they responsible for? Pardon?
The appearance.
For instance, the appearance of inherent existence. Yes. So that would be the appearance of inherent existence. Those who are self-liberated, although it's amazing that they reach that liberation, but they still have the appearance of inherent existence, as one example. What else? What else is their problem?
Maybe subject-object duality.
They still have that subject-object duality. Okay, yeah, they still have conceptual minds and subject, yes. Okay, what else?
They can't conceive conventional ultimate truth as a
They can't conceive conventional and ultimate truth simultaneously. They lack being
omniscient.
omniscient. So that's the truth of suffering. So the truth of origin, what caused all this? So an arhat is someone liberated. Yeah, all these problems are gone that we associate with samsara. So the ordinary Four Noble Truth, as we know them from the fundamental vehicle point of view, or the fundamental Four Noble Truth of those, they've overcome the first two, but not the first two of the universal vehicle point of view, because they still have cognitive obscurations. Cognitive obscurations still cause them to not experience omniscience, effortless great compassion, seeing the true truth simultaneously. They still have the appearance of inherent existence, right? Those are their truth of suffering. So now, going back to great compassion. You have a question? There's a question mark on your face.
Some of the things I'm having trouble agreeing with,
Okay,
they're not fitting in my mind.
all right. Okay, let's leave it for the time when we ask questions. So keep working with it, yeah, and then I'll try and address them. Okay, so having said this, now, if I generate great compassion for all sentient beings and I don't want to leave out arhats, what would be a solution to the mind? What do I generate? I generate a loving attitude that wishes for all sentient beings to be free from suffering. What does that suffering include? Pardon? It includes, the absence of omniscience, caused by cognitive obscurations. Absolutely. So I'm basically wishing for all sentient beings not just to be liberated, also to become enlightened. And so the arhats are not left out, because they've still got one job to do, which they can absolutely accomplish, right? Now, how do I know that? Because if you look at the text, where we got to last time, if you look at the text, okay. All right, let's read the text. Today we can finish this one verse. How compassion is also the root of the two other causes of bodhisattvas. As compassion. In Tibetan, it starts with kangchir. And it's basically saying because, or as here it works as well, although as does not work as here, like giving a reason for. So it's basically saying, why is great compassion the main cause of these two, of the other two? The mind that realizes emptiness and the contrived awakening mind. So then it explains why it's the main cause of all the causes towards Buddhahood, or all the causes of Buddhahood. That's on page, wait, let me check. It should be 58, around 58 if you have the PDF, and 43 if you have the book. 43, 44, yeah, that's the verse. The verse, yeah. As compassion alone is accepted to be the seed of the perfect harvest of Buddhahood, the water that nourishes it, and the fruit that is a long source of enjoyment, I will praise compassion at the start of all. So it's saying it's important in the beginning, important in the middle, and important at the end. So since compassion, I read this last time, but let's go through it again. Since compassion is the root of the awakening mind and of non-dual awareness as well, Chandrakirti wrote, as compassion alone, etc. Did you find it? How compassion is also the root of the two other causes. Yeah. With the intention. So why did he write this verse? Why did he compose this verse? He had the intention to show how compassion is primary among these three factors. It's the primary factor. There's another debate, but let's leave it for now. As compassion alone is crucially important in the beginning to help produce the perfect harvest of Buddhahood, it is like the seed. To nourish the plant to ever high states in the middle, it's like the water, or the fertilizer. It is like the water. Finally, as a source of enjoyment by the trainees for a long time, it is accepted as resembling the ripened fruit. Therefore, I, Chandrakirti, will praise compassion as opposed to, so instead of praising Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, or the other two causes, which are the mind realizing emptiness and the awakening mind, at the start of composing this treatise, I praise compassion. I want to stress, this is for us. Understanding, you want to practice the universal vehicle, compassion, 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 compassion. Compassion is so important. We have to strive towards it. Even if we, let's say we generate bodhicitta, the mind to become enlightened, if we don't have compassion, it's not bodhicitta. Even if it's the aspiration to become enlightened, if I say the words for the benefit of all, it doesn't become bodhicitta. In fact, I once met a lady, she said to me, seriously, and she wasn't arrogant or anything, she said, I'm a bodhisattva. So I had to really control myself. I knew she wasn't full of herself, right? So I was like, oh, what makes you think that? Try to keep a straight face. And she said, because I want to become a Buddha. Ah, yeah, I want to become a Buddha for my own benefit, definitely. But that doesn't make me a bodhisattva. So it's because of bodhicitta, because of great compassion. It's just means to an end, because Buddhahood, if, I'm saying it in a kind of ridiculous way, but if fulfilling my wish to lead all other sentient beings to enlightenment, if I could accomplish that by knowing how to cook soup, how to make momos, that's what I would learn to right? I mean, it doesn't matter. It's something absurd. Like if I knew how to make momos and with that ability, I could take all sentient beings to enlightenment. Well, then my bodhicitta would be the wish to be able to make momos for the benefit of all sentient beings, right? So here the point is, bodhicitta is a means to a very important end, and that is the end is that which we wish for when we have great compassion. Therefore, compassion is so important. Now, the debate that may arise, and I just give you the debate and then I leave it at that, why not the other two? Why not bodhicitta is important in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end? Why the mind that realizes emptiness? Why is that not important in the beginning, the middle, and the end? All right, I'll leave it the question now, and then you can try and answer in a bit. Okay, so that's the verse. Now, Lama Tsongkhapa explains, it is not that compassion is praised at some later. Here he's giving an explanation because it says, I will praise compassion. In Tibetan it also says, dobargi, right? So it also says, I will, which means I will praise compassion. Or dobargi, it means I will praise compassion. So here I will praise compassion. But that could be misunderstood. It's like, I will praise it, I'm not doing this right now. What's going on? No, but here it says it's not that compassion is praised at some later point in the text, even though it uses the future tense. It is praised here itself by simply showing how it is important at the beginning as well as at the end and in the middle when it comes to producing the fruit of a conqueror. The exclusionary modifier alone, in Tibetan it sounds much easier, that word. So like a word like only, it excludes something. It's an exclusionary modifier, alone. We all know a very common merely labeled, only labeled, right? Nothing more than that. So it excludes something. These are very important. In Tibetan, they are mentioned, this term is used a lot because it's quite powerful to add these words, and sometimes you just need to add a simple word and it takes on a very different meaning. Merely, or compassion alone is important in the beginning, middle, and end. So it's kind of saying the other ones are not important. You could say, oh, compassion is really important in the beginning, middle, and end, but that doesn't mean by itself that the other ones are not important. But here, the alone stresses great compassion is more important. They have a certain importance, of course, but not like great compassion. And you need to find out why. You need to figure out why, right? Okay. We need to figure out why. The exclusionary modifier alone indicates that unlike in the analogy of an external crop, compassion alone. Okay, so while it also excludes the mind realizing emptiness and the awakening mind, but also it's here Lama Tsongkhapa is saying specifically when you take an external crop, it's like the seed is important in the beginning, then fertilizer and water is important in the middle, and then the actual fruit is important. So here you have one mind that is important at all three times. So in that sense also alone. Where what is crucial in the beginning, at the end, and the middle are different. In the context here, compassion alone is crucial for the crop of a conqueror at the beginning and at the end, as well as in the middle. It's pretty easy, right? It's not difficult. Okay, now how is it important in the beginning? Like the seed, compassion is crucial at the beginning. Those with great compassion will feel pain at the suffering of other sentient beings. Feel pain, it's not like, oh, the suffering, I'm so depressed. No, it's not being able to bear it, basically, right? It doesn't bring you into, but it has also to do with empathy, putting into yourself into the other person's shoes. You get a sense what that is like without actually experiencing it, but you get a sense of what it's like, right? That's how we can generate compassion. And fortunately, for instance, modern science, neuroscience tells us we can do that because we have mirror. We have mirror neurons. We can actually put ourselves into the other person's shoes. We have a brain that enables us to do that. Our mind can do it anyway, but being trapped in this particular body right now, a lot of what we can do with our mind has to do with the body we have. There are certain restrictions, but fortunately as humans we have mirror neurons. We have mirror neurons, yeah. So it actually enables us to get a sense of what the other person is going through, to put ourselves into the other person's shoe, which is such a beautiful expression. So it's not like you're really in their shoes, but you imagine you're in their shoes. And for a bodhisattva, you see, like if we are so stuck in our own shoes, we have a hard time to put ourselves into another person's shoes. But if we let go to a certain degree of our self-centeredness, we can stand or we can visualize more effectively to be in their shoes. And just as we want ourselves to be free from suffering, the natural reaction will then be for them to be free from suffering. Right? We have that tendency, and it is quite interesting. If we're not too self-absorbed, we have these moments. We see someone in the middle of the street suffering, and the first reaction is to go and help, right? This shows, in that moment, we have that natural tendency, and it's not about, okay, we're helping this person means the next 5 years I need to be with this person and help them. If that were the deal, we wouldn't run, right? It's just that second. We're not thinking about time. Okay, in that moment, like you see someone who just fell, so you forget your doctor's appointment, you're just thinking, I can help. And it feels like it's just a few seconds, I can do it. So the self is not holding us back because we're not sacrificing anything. We're just running up to that person. It shows what is in the way is our self-centered attitude. Or like you see something terrible and they're asking for money and you go like, yeah, I'm going to donate money. And then you start counting your money and go, I donated something last year, or maybe not, right? Because the self, again, oh, I may lose some money and I don't have enough to buy, I don't know, more coffee and more cake and so forth. And so then the I gets involved. The moment the I, the self-centeredness gets involved, compassion is like, maybe not. But the spontaneous reaction when we hear that, I want to do something, I want to help. If self-centeredness were not in the way, we would do it, even if it meant 5 years or what have you, or give away, a certain amount of money. Of course, not that we give away everything and we starve. That would be compassion without wisdom. So that's very important. Okay, anyway, what I just said. So with great compassion, they feel pain at the suffering of other sentient beings. They put themselves into their shoes. They get a sense of what's going on. And so to help protect all suffering-ridden sentient beings, and here suffering we already analyzed, it doesn't just refer to suffering from the fundamental vehicle point of view, but it can also include the suffering from the universal school point of view. Protect all suffering-ridden sentient beings. So it says protect, not just wish for them to be free, protect. May I be able to protect. So Lama Tsongkhapa is saying it. Not just do I wish for all sentient beings, I wish to protect them. I take personal responsibility. Yeah? They generate the mind, and now direct it towards their welfare and contemplate, I will rescue all these sentient beings from suffering and definitely join them to Buddhahood. What is that mind that is saying, I will rescue all sentient beings? What is it? The altruistic resolve. Having had great compassion. And what do they wish for? Definitely join them. I don't know, in Tibetan it says definitely help them to attain. Definitely get them to attain. Join them too. It's kind of like, give me a screw and I join them to Buddha. No. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm just not that familiar with that kind of expression. In Tibetan it says, I will get them to obtain Buddhahood. So here it shows it's not just the wish for them to be liberated, it's also Buddhahood. So I think that those lines make it quite clear that wishing for sentient beings to be free from suffering and wishing to protect them from suffering does not just include liberation or the wish to liberate them from obstructions to liberation, afflictive obstructions. No, it's also the wish to live, or the resolve in this case, to take them to Buddhahood. So if the resolve is that you're determined to take sentient beings to Buddhahood, well, you need to aspire towards it first, which is what great compassion does. Doesn't that logically make sense? Right? So temporarily, of course, you may wish to take some sentient beings towards liberation if enlightenment right now is not on their plate. It's just not the right. They may feel, either they may not believe it's possible that they become Buddhas, or they may feel, yeah, maybe in the future, but not right now. I just want to get out of samsara. For whatever reason, sentient beings wish to become self-liberated fast, but if now you generate great compassion, usually it's expressed like saying you wish them to be liberated or enlightened. So in the long term, of course, enlightened, but maybe for the time being, you would also help them to become liberated. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. So having done this analysis, it makes sense. The wish for all sentient beings to be free from suffering. It makes sense that the suffering includes cognitive obscurations. Secondly, it makes sense. It's not just the wish for them to be free from suffering. It's also the wish to protect them from suffering. Because, as Lama Tsongkhapa says it here, and also because the determination to do so needs to be preceded by the wish to do so. Yeah, it's not like you become determined one day to help all sentient beings to be liberated or enlightened, but you never wished for it. So when do you wish for it? Well, when you have great compassion. Great compassion helps you to wish for it. And that is supported by what it says here in the text, just in one simple sentence. So seeing that this is dependent on attaining Buddhahood themselves, after having generated the altruistic resolve, they generate the mind focused on awakening with the thought, I will by all possible means attain Buddhahood for the sake of these beings. This is quite interesting because it doesn't say I aspire, I want to. It's saying I will. So usually we'd say it's the aspiration to become enlightened. It seems like it's the determination to become enlightened. I mean, I guess you start off with an aspiration and then it turns into a determination. I don't know. But yeah, it kind of struck me because it struck me to be interesting in that you have great compassion that wishes first and then the determination, but you never have that with bodhicitta. First you aspire and then you're determined. But maybe implied by that step by step in the case of great compassion and the altruistic resolve, implied in that is that, well, you'll go through a similar process when it comes to wishing to become fully enlightened. First you aspire and then you're determined. You resolve to become enlightened. And here Lama Tsongkhapa says, I will, by all possible means, attain Buddhahood for the sake of these beings. Recognizing that such a pledge cannot be fulfilled if one forsakes the altruistic deeds. All right, so that's just the first step. I want to become enlightened. Now I need to work towards it. Just having that kind of kind-hearted mind that wishes to become enlightened is not enough. You need to move towards it. It cannot be fulfilled if one forsakes the altruistic deeds. So we have to now accumulate the causes and conditions to become fully enlightened. That includes non-dual wisdom, the perfection of generosity, and so on. They then, therefore, definitely engage in the practice of all the deeds, of all these practices, including especially the cultivation of gnosis, or this intuitive kind of wisdom, which of course realizes emptiness. Because that is the vacuum cleaner that removes the afflictive obscurations, is the vacuum cleaner that removes the cognitive obscurations in our own mental continuum in order to become a Buddha, in order then to lead all other sentient beings to that same state, right? So after I generated the aspiration to become fully enlightened, now got a whole lot of work to do. Yeah, and it doesn't just include at engaging in the bodhisattva's deeds, but also to strengthen my bodhicitta. It feels like, oh, I've got bodhicitta, I'm okay. That bodhicitta kind of remains the same. It has to become stronger. Great compassion becomes stronger, right? It gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Okay. Therefore, great compassion is the seed of all the attributes of the Buddha. With this understanding, the precious garland, Nagarjuna's precious garland, states, in the scriptures of the great vehicle in which are taught all the practices, sustained as wisdom and so on, preceded by compassion, what sane person would deride such teachings? So like deriding the teachings of the universal vehicle. Because of course, there is this view that the teachings of the universal vehicle did not come from the Buddha. Weren't taught by the Buddha because they appeared only later on in time. Yeah? But just because they appeared later on in time, that's no evidence that they weren't taught by the Buddha, because the explanation, of course, is usually that they weren't taught widely. It didn't become a mainstream teaching. It was passed on from one person to the next. And the result is the same. They only appeared later on. So how can you infer that therefore they weren't taught by the Buddha if that wasn't the reason for why they didn't appear earlier? Okay, anyway. So therefore Nagarjuna says, well, these teachings of the universal vehicle, they teach us exactly how to get to Buddhahood. So how can we deride these instructions? The stanza above, that's from Precious Garland, states how we can just read this. This is not that difficult. There's nothing really in there, I think, that needs explanation. This stanza of the Precious Garland states how all the essential points of the Mahayana are encompassed within the three practices. The awakening mind preceded by compassion, the bodhisattva deeds in general, which are brought forth by the awakening mind, and in particular the practice of wisdom, free from the stain of objectification in terms of the true extremes. So this verse is basically saying, okay, once you have the awakening mind, once you have bodhicitta, you need that awakening mind. Now you need to, well, of course, continue to practice the awakening mind and great compassion. You need to engage in the bodhisattva deeds and definitely realize emptiness and work on your emptiness if you've not already realized it. Then, why is great compassion also crucial in the middle? So here's how, like water, compassion is also crucial in the middle. Even if the seed of compassion produces the sprout of the awakening mind at the beginning, if it is not repeatedly moistened with the water of compassion later on, one will fail to gather the vast twofold collections that are the cause for the fruit of Buddhahood. One will definitely actualize the nirvana of either a Shravaka or a Pratyeka Buddha instead. If, however, it is repeatedly moistened with the water of compassion, one will not end up in that situation. Okay, and then lastly, here's how, like the ripened fruit, compassion is also crucial at the end. Even if one attains the conquerors, the Buddha state, if one lacks the ripened fruit of compassion, if hypothetically there were a Buddha without compassion, one will not become a resource that sustains other sentient beings. The proliferation of the uninterrupted lineages of Arya Shravakas, Arya Pratyeka Buddhas, and Arya Bodhisattvas, one following another in a continuous lineage, will also not come about. So a Buddha would not teach others so that they become Aryas, that they become Aryahiras, solitary realizers, or Bodhisattvas. So that would also not happen if there were no compassion. If on the other hand, compassion is perpetually present on the resultant ground, only the contrary situation will come about. So it means there will be Aryas, Arya Shravakas, Arya solitary, Arya Pratyeka Buddhas, and Arya Bodhisattvas. Therefore, through explicating the meaning of these four lines that begin as compassion is alone is accepted to be. So this root verse from Chandrakirti's text, we should gain a firm conviction that these lines demonstrate the following. If I aspire to follow the great vehicle, I must first become moved by the power of compassion. So this is Lama Tsongkhapa here saying, telling us, addressing us personally. So if you want to follow this, you need great compassion. I must first become moved by the power of compassion. And on that basis, I must then generate the awakening mind from the depth of my heart. Having generated such a mind, I must, without doubt, engage in the bodhisattva deeds in general, and in particular penetrate the depth of the profound view of emptiness. In this way, I must train in these. All right, so this completes this second verse. You see, the first verse we spent a lot of time on. Second verse, there was no need. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But still, why is it great compassion and not bodhicitta and not the mind realizing emptiness? That is considered to be, that is mentioned here as equally important in the beginning, the middle, and the end. What do you think?
Is it like we did say before, that it's the first time we switched our perspective from cherishing ourselves to cherishing others?
Oh, is it because it's the first time we changed our perspective from cherishing self to others? No, I don't think. That's why we say that this is so important. That's one reason, at least, why it's so important to actually generate that mind, why it's such a milestone. It's more like, why is it such a milestone? But no, I think there's more to it. What do you think? It's basically explained in those, what I just read. Pardon?
Because it's the motivation part for the awakened mind.
Yep, that's it. And for the mind realizing emptiness, it carries the other two. It carries the other two. It's great compassion that carries, because bodhicitta is actually only the wish to become enlightened. So we say for the benefit of sentient beings, but your focus is enlightenment. It's carried by great compassion, right? The cause. Remember I spoke about a few classes ago, I said bodhicitta has two elements. The element of the benefit of others, that's great compassion, and the element of enlightenment. Compassion precedes it, it's just the cause, but it carries it. It's a cause that carries it, for a lack of a better word. So it says here, if you don't have compassion, it doesn't happen. Once you're a bodhisattva on a certain level, you don't lose bodhicitta. But hypothetically, let's imagine you did. You would no longer be a bodhisattva. You wouldn't be driven by great compassion. You may still be driven by renunciation, so you become a hero or solitary realizer, aim towards self-liberation. That could happen, except it doesn't happen once you reach a certain level. You're so determined, but we can hypothetically still kind of go through what it would be like. Therefore, yes, exactly, it carries, we think it's bodhicitta, but bodhicitta in turn is carried by great compassion, right? So the wish to become enlightened. In fact, in the Lamrim Chemo, I wanted to look it up and I forgot. Lama Tsongkhapa actually says a pratyeka Buddha wishes to become a Buddha for his or her own benefit. So we heard before pratyeka Buddha. Why is it Buddha? Where's the word Buddha come from? A solitary realizer? Well, because of the realizer. Buddha can also mean realizer. But Lama Tsongkhapa explains it differently in the Lamrim Chemo, in the Great Lamrim. He says a pratyeka Buddha wants to become enlightened for his or her own benefit. That's okay if it's conjoined with compassion. If it's conjoined with renunciation, it takes you to self-liberation, right? If it's conjoined with great compassion, it takes you to enlightenment, because then you're doing it for the benefit of all sentient beings, and you cannot become a fully enlightened Buddha for only your own benefit. The force of that motivation, even if it's not self-centered, it's just without self-centeredness, I just wish to become liberated. But since it's just for one individual, it's not going to take you there. Okay? Yes, so therefore, yes, as Alan said, it is on the basis of, it's the fact that what carries bodhicitta, what carries the mind realizing emptiness on, what motivates it, what pushes it on, is great compassion. And then once you're a Buddha, bodhicitta has the wish to become enlightened. You're already enlightened. Wisdom, the purpose of realizing emptiness was to eliminate what's to be eliminated. You've done that. But great compassion is still very much active. Different to, like, oh, I want to realize, I have to understand emptiness, even strengthen that mind. No need to do so. Or wish to become enlightened. You've retained enlightenment. But basically, hypothetically, if you didn't have great compassion, again, it's totally hypothetical, it's impossible, but if you didn't have great compassion, even you're omniscient, you wouldn't work for the benefit of sentient beings. So again, you need great compassion. Okay, so that's the reason why. But I haven't asked you about your homework yet, because that's the next debate. And Maud tried, I mean, nice, she said something nice, I read it in the before. Maud said, so I ask you, do you, in this text, it says, you need to generate an understanding of emptiness first as a person of sharp faculty, all right? So here it distinguishes, it says the person who's the main disciple of this text is a person. So now we should think, when Chandrakirti composed this text, he didn't know us. I don't think he was particularly focusing all these strange humans one day. He may, having certain mental abilities, clairvoyance possibly, may have been aware of us, but I think his focus was mainly on certain disciples, on certain people around him. Those were the main disciples for this text. So those were the main, for lack of a better word, those were the main student,
Audience?
Yeah, that's a good one. Those were the main audience for this particular text. They were meant to be the main audience. And they were said to be practitioners of sharp faculty. And for them, he told them, first comes, before you generate bodhicitta, you need to realize emptiness. And they definitely did. They were, on the basis of this text, they then generated great compassion and so forth. Of course, he also taught it to others of dull faculty, but they were not the main audience, as Kumbin said it so eloquently. Yeah, so they were not the main audience. Or in Tibetan, it says literally the Chetuta, which is like the main disciple, the disciple at who it was directed, mainly directed. Yes, so, all right. That being the case, well, do you also have to realize emptiness before generating great compassion? Actually, the assertion is you have to.
You have to realize emptiness before great compassion.
Yes. As a person of sharp faculty. Yeah. As a person of sharp faculty. Why? Okay, what did Maud say? I thought she said something. I would say that in order to wish all sentient beings to be free from suffering, you must first have no doubt about the fact that they are all suffering. They are all suffering, and that this suffering is due to their misunderstanding of reality. That's a good one, but there's another reason. Because you're aspiring to do what? To help them overcome suffering. Okay, so now, yes, because you understand that it's possible, right? If it has a root cause, that can be removed, it can be. It's like a doctor, right? If there's a disease, it was caused by a particular, I don't know, let's say virus, and I have to find out, can I remove the virus, or is it inseparably linked to their body? Yeah? Or is there some growth in the body that causes all these symptoms? Can I safely remove it without killing the person, or not? So similarly here. So I have to find out what is the root cause. The root cause being, so in other sentient beings, what is the root? So we've already come to the conclusion. Suffering here means afflictive and cognitive obscurations. So to say it simply, and all the restrictions that they generate, right? All the disadvantages they generate in the form of the truth of suffering, from the fundamental and universal point of view. So I have to find out, is it actually possible to remove these obscurations by understanding what is their root cause? What is their root cause? The misconception of reality. Can it be removed? Only if it's a wrong consciousness. Only then can I remove it. How do I find out that's a wrong consciousness? By knowing its main object doesn't exist. Inherent existence is impossible. This mind it's totally wrong. So I need to realize emptiness first.
But my issue here is that, unless I get it completely wrong, it's only that we start this premise with the understanding that there is a theoretical wish
Uh-huh.
to benefit the all sentient being suffering.
Yes.
And in order to do that, I have to walk the path.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So then I would argue that at least the theoretical wish for great compassion
Yeah.
is prior to the wish to realize
Yeah.
it.
I know. I understand what you mean. It's almost like you're already on the path. It's almost like this is just okay. I start with that wish. I'm not really sure yet. Why do I need to realize emptiness? I first have that wish and then I deal with emptiness, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's a bit like I want everybody to be free from suffering.
Yes.
But in order to find the best medicine, right, I have to realize that it's myself, be convinced, and then walk the path.
Okay, so you're saying I want all sentient beings to be free from suffering, so then I have to first find out, after I've done that, then I take the step. Can it be removed? Can the problem be removed? Okay, and then I realize emptiness. Okay, all right. But why? I mean, to wish for all sentient beings to become free from suffering, that requires a lot of practice, right? It's not like a doctor who knows, or some people are sick and some are not. So it is possible not to have this disease, for instance, right? So this is different. But let's say, in this case here, I mean, to generate great compassion, you really need to totally let go of your way of life. We need to let go of our usual way of life. It requires a lot of effort and discipline. Do I want to do this if I'm not sure it's possible? It's like you wish for all sentient beings. I mean, now I become a doctor to become. I wish to become this doctor to be able to free all sentient beings from a disease. First, I want to find out whether that's at all possible. If in the end I'm a doctor and I can't do anything, what a waste of time, right? I mean, if I just specialized on that. That's kind of like, maybe the analogy is not that good. You see what I'm saying? So here it's not about like, oh, let's just generate that wish because it's so easy. The problem is it's not easy to generate great compassion. And it gets even further. One commentary I'm reading right now, there the person says, great compassion needs to be preceded by renunciation. And that needs to be preceded by the mind realizing emptiness. Yeah, and it makes sense. First, I want to be free from samsara myself, right? But only if I know it's possible. I mean, like, is it at all possible to really generate that uncontrived? I mean, I'm going from contrived to uncontrived. So contrived, okay, no need to realize emptiness. But uncontrived, I really want to be free from samsara. Because why would I wish it for all other sentient beings if I don't even wish it for myself? Oh, I love my samsara. Everyone else should go out. That seems kind of cruel. Like, I love my samsara. I don't want anyone else to be out of samsara. You can't wish for other sentient beings to be free from samsara at the very least if you don't understand its drawbacks and you don't want it for yourself. Yeah. So you first need to generate the wish to become free from samsara. Not self-liberated, but just free from samsara. Okay, with the back of my mind, of course, I want to become a Buddha in the future, but first, right, I want to be free from samsara. I need to understand its drawbacks. And even for that, I need to realize emptiness first. And isn't that hard? It seems like compassion is a little easier, great compassion is a little easier than renunciation. I think with renunciation, it's kind of like, ooh, that's a lot of work. And even for that, I need to realize emptiness. Now there's a debate. If I say that, then it's not great compassion that is the root, it's the mind realizing emptiness that is the root. Wow, it's all collapsing. Well, it's great to debate. It's always good, you pull the rug underneath your feet. You feel like you understand, and then I pull out. And it's like, whoa, you start from... So that's a very good way. I mean, you take it with humor, not with frustration. And it's a really good way to deepen your understanding, because they're always like little, so, okay, how do I get around this? How do I get around that? That's your homework.
Oh, that was my question.
Oh, that was your question.
I'm leaving Friday.
Sorry, you need to figure it out yourself. No, I want you to try and figure it out yourself first. Sit down. Why does Chandrakirti say great compassion is the root of the mind realizing emptiness, even before becoming a bodhisattva, when in actuality, if you are especially a person of greater, sharper faculty, you need to first realize emptiness before you can generate great compassion. And because since before you can generate great compassion, which really wishes for sentient beings at least to be liberated, you need to have renunciation. That's your homework. No, don't answer. It's your homework. Okay, great. Does that make sense? Okay. Oh, there's already a long answer. Okay. Yes? Okay, I'll read it. I can't read it right. Okay. All right, so this was a lot today. We did cover a whole verse, so that's more than we accomplished before. Yeah, I started it last time. But yeah, so there are a lot of debates. You see, what is really great compassion? But in order to practice it, we need to fully understand it. So renunciation, it's good to start with that. Yeah, it's like, oh, renunciation. Great compassion makes us feel good. Great renunciation seems boring, right? Oh, I have to think of suffering. But that's like saying, oh, I want to go to high school, but I'm not going to go through elementary school. Sorry, it's difficult. It's not going to work. So, I mean, it doesn't mean you can only do one at the exclusion of the other. No, you can do them together. But also reflect on what I said today. Are our experiences really in the nature of happiness? Right? That doesn't mean we cannot enjoy them. In fact, we can enjoy them much more. We can enjoy them much more because we have no unrealistic expectations. All right, it's nice, okay, but it's gonna go. Let it go. Don't expect it to happen again. No, it won't happen right away. So enjoy it for what it is and let it go. This is like an emotional yo-yo. Yesterday I talked to some students and I told them my story. That's kind of like why I was called to tell my story. So I told them my story and I came up again. When I first came here, I was such an emotional yo-yo. And I thought the Tibetans were like stones. Because they weren't emotional yo-yos. They didn't react with like, wow, something great. Oh, something bad. And I thought they were all like really cold. Until I realized they were normal. I was extreme. Right? Because in my mind something great happened. I was like, wow, like it's gonna last. I'm so excited. And there was this intuitive sense. I mean, intuition in the wrong intuition, of course, I have a lot of those. So this wrong intuition, it's gonna last. So I was so excited. But the moment it happened, it changed already into something else. Then when a problem arose, wow, how terrible. And this problem is unchanging, going to continue. No, the first moment, okay. And Tibetans, through their culture, I'm not saying they're all like specialists in subtle impermanence, but they learn it from their parents, they learn it from society. the way they react. If they react strongly, then people tell them, what are you, that this basic advice, I think even people who haven't studied the Dharma, I mean, if there's a solution, let's see whether there's something we can do about it. So why do you get so worked up? Let's look at the situation. Especially, of course, based on Shantideva's, Acharya Shantideva's advice. If there's a remedy, why get upset? If there's no remedy, what's the point in getting upset, right? So the thing is, we may think it's natural to get upset, but it's not it's not based on reality, and it adds a problem to a problem. If we have already a problem and we get upset, it makes it even worse. Yeah. So instead of dealing with the problem in a sensible way, we're like, I have a problem. That's me. I mean, I'm still worse than when I first came. Like I'm saying, I was a total emotional yo-yo. Yeah, I still am, but not as bad as before. So therefore, how did I get to that? How do I get to that? Oh yes, exactly, about suffering. Therefore, we can enjoy. So the thing is, although we may not like to think about suffering, and this is your homework, renunciation, to reflect on the 3 types of suffering, our experiences, right? But not with this negative kind of, but instead to understand we can enjoy things with a realistic mind. Enjoy them when they're there, but also be ready to accept suffering, knowing that these problems, well, we can first of all try and solve the problem and find a remedy. And if not, well, they eventually change into something else again. Yeah? And in that way be more balanced and much more resilient. Much more resilient. I think it was Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo who said this. Somehow I may remember it not in the right way, but I remember talking to a group of other people, and I was there, and she said that Swedish scientists, psychologists, I don't remember, but Sweden somehow I remember that word. They have examined people who practice meditation also in the context of Buddhism, I think it was, that there's a profound change. One change is their ups and downs are not as profound. Their downs, they come up quicker, so they become more resilient. Then you have these downs and up, but even if there's a down curve, you come up quicker, and your general sense of well-being, which is like a line throughout your life, right? A general sense of satisfaction. For some people, if they're very materialistic and don't engage in kind of practices that look more inwards, it's pretty low. It's pretty low. Whereas if you engage in these practices, turning inwards, doing mindfulness meditation and possibly meditation on love and compassion, that general well-being is higher. So the general, I'll have to look it up. I think I also Googled it once and found it. So I'll try and find it again. It's like a higher sense of well-being in general, greater satisfaction, less ups and downs. And even if there's a downturn, you come up quicker. So it's just because we're more realistic. The problems are not the problem. The problem is that we add a new problem. Our mind holding on to permanence, feeling like, oh, it's the end of everything, and so forth. Anyway, having said all this, your meditation is to reflect on, your homework is to reflect on all that. Yeah? Reflect on our experiences. Are you going to do it, Fred?
If I have time.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I've a little bit ignored the discussion group. Sorry, because there's a lot I covered today and I forgot. Sometimes I remember. So if there's still questions, those of you who follow online, you're welcome to put it in the group. Please also do the homework if you can. Maybe post the answers to your questions before next time, because I have time at home to read it around 1 or 2 o'clock Indian time. And all that's left is to dedicate all the virtue we've accumulated today so that it doesn't get lost. getting angry, for instance, but rather become a powerful cause, well, first of all, towards our own enlightenment, so that we're quickly able to generate great compassion, bodhicitta, wisdom, and so forth, not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of every single sentient being. But may also cause our precious lamas, our precious masters like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and all other great lamas, great realized beings, to have a long and healthy life, so that they can continue to guide us. And lastly, however subtle the difference may be, but may it still make a difference, may it affect other people who we're connected to, since we're connected to all sentient beings, to find more inner peace, to reduce their aggression, their aversion, and so forth, and overcome their problems such as stress and loneliness. So with this in mind, let's recite the prayer. The prayers: in the snow-encircled land, you are the source of benefit and bliss. Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain in life until samsara ends. The brave Manjushri and also Samantabhadra realize things as they are. Hence, in order to be able to follow their example, I dedicate these merits in the best way. With the dedication praised as supreme by the victorious ones of the 3 times, I completely dedicate all these roots of virtue so that I might engage in the noble bodhisattva deeds. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Thank you.